Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Polkadot, and we're going to be looking at its valuation against the US dollar, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. It has been lagging behind a lot of the other platforms, smart contract platforms recently. We're going to take a look to see where it is today and what are some milestones to keep an eye out for. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So we should probably start with the .USD valuation that's coming in now at a very modest $34 or $35. And if we look at our 20-week SMA for DOT, you can see that it's currently at approximately $24. And the 21-week EMA is closer to $25. So we are at least above that. So that's at least a point for the bulls. One of the other things we can look at with DOT, and this is something we looked at a few months ago, was the 20-day. Okay, we looked at that 20-day moving average. And the reason was because we saw DOT bounce off of that 20-day moving average multiple times. Okay, we moved above it here, we bounced off of it there, and here again, and then here again as well. And then we sort of tried to hold it up here, but we ultimately came into another sideways movement before Bitcoin dumped and then the whole market just went down. But then recently, one could argue, or dubiously speculate, is the DOT train getting back on track, right? Is the DOT train getting back on track? And at the current prices, it still leaves, I would say, a lot to be desired. Why does it leave a lot to be desired? Well, the reason is because the all-time high for DOT is over $50, and we're still trading for a very modest $35. If you go look at other projects like Cardano has already moved well above its prior all-time highs. Other projects have as well. Avalanche has at least made it to the prior all-time high, or close to it. Solana has taken it to a completely new level and far surpassed it, right? Far surpassed it. So when we look at Polkadot, and I see it here trading at around $35 or so, it makes me wonder, is there, what's sort of holding it back? What's sort of holding it back? And one of the things we can look at are not only the .USD valuations, but also say the .Ether valuation and the .Bitcoin valuation to see if we get any insight there. Now, I would say the parachain auctions should generally help with DOT. Some potential sources of slowing down the price action could be related to the whole cap that they have on the nominators at the moment, and I know they're still trying to get that worked out. That might have had some effect. But regardless, I do think that DOT, relative to a lot of its competitors, right, has not really made that same type of move yet. Now, it has had a fairly substantial move. I'm not trying to discount that, but the problem is it's only moved back up to the prior range that it was in. It hasn't even decisively moved above it like many other smart contract platforms have. Okay. And you can see that by the fact that it's moved back up to the $34 to $35 range, which again is sort of the midpoint where we were range bound earlier between, say, $27 and $50. Okay, so not even quite the midpoint, on the lower bound, the lower end of the midpoint. So it's interesting, though, I think, to go look at, say, the valuations of DOT against the larger projects, right, against Bitcoin and Ethereum. And if you go look at it against Ethereum, again, we don't really have a whole lot of data for it, but you can see that this historically has actually turned out to be a pretty good time to accumulate DOT. Whenever the DOT Ether valuation gets into this region down here, where the valuation against Ether is ranging between, say, 6,000 up to 8,000. And right now you can see it's at 88.92. This is its Ether valuation. And if we go look at the top part of the range to see where we made it before in March, you can see that the valuation of DOT against Ethereum from the current prices was able to go up another 183%. Now, a 183% move by DOT would surely get it above its prior all-time high. Not even a local top, that was the all-time high. If Ethereum stayed constant and DOT went up 183%, which we know the DOT Ether valuation is capable of making it there, well, because we've done it before. If it did that, it would actually put DOT at $99. Okay, we put it around $99, which would more or less represent a 3x from the current valuations if it were able to make that type of a move. Now, the Bitcoin valuation actually is fairly interesting, because if we actually look at this prior resistance point, we can see that we've in fact moved above it again, okay? And the reason we like looking at this is because if you go over and look at Ether's valuation when it first launched, right? When Ether first launched against Bitcoin, it did something very similar, okay? It came down, and then it came up in January, and then it was just off to the races. It did bleed later on, but with DOT against Bitcoin, it did very similar move. Note the market caps are a lot higher these days, so we don't expect the market caps or the valuations of these projects to move up nearly as easily anymore, because again, the market caps are a lot higher. But you can see it came down and then back up in January, and then made this move up to the upside, and then it bled back down, which is actually very similar to what Ethereum did, albeit not quite as manic, right? It came up, and let me draw that, say like that rectangle. It came up past this, it came all the way up here, and then bled back down. And you see some similarities here with the Bitcoin valuation, down in Q4 of 2020, and then up in 2021 to an all-time high in May, and then back down close to where we were before, and then starting to move again. This is actually very similar to what we saw Ethereum do. If you look at 2015, it's just 5 years later, and not quite as volatile as Ethereum was back then against Bitcoin. But again, the market cap of Ethereum back then was a lot smaller, and so was it for Bitcoin too. But then you can see that Ether Bitcoin's valuation continued to go on and have a fairly nice run that eventually took out the prior all-time high of the Ether Bitcoin valuation. So now we're looking at the Bitcoin valuation, and I would like to note, what would DOT have to do against Bitcoin to put in a new all-time high? Well, it would actually have to go up about 51%. And for DOT to go up 51% from the current prices for a constant Bitcoin, it would actually put it at around $53 or just above the prior all-time high. But again, I would hope that DOT can outperform its prior all-time high against Bitcoin, similar to how Ethereum was able to outperform it a few years ago. So going back to the USD valuation, I would still say anywhere between, let's say, $27 up to $51 is more or less just business as usual. We're not really carving out any new price discovery mode. We are still sort of trying to figure out, hey, can the market support these prices or not? Once the market has fully accepted that this is okay for DOT and this is a good valuation for it, we can hopefully go back into price discovery mode and trend higher. I still think, as I said with Link yesterday, I think Polkadot can make it to a several $100 valuation this market cycle. I don't think that has to be this year, though. I don't think that has to be this year. It could be this year, but I don't think it has to be. I think that we have time. There's going to be moves to the downside. We already know we can see 60-70% drops. DOT even saw a 79 or 80% drop. You know, we've seen these things before. Okay, these things are fairly standard in crypto. The DOT valuation against Bitcoin bled about 65%. If we go compare the Ethereum valuation against Bitcoin back in the day, it dropped about 80%. So again, you might look at it and say, you know, is this a red flag that DOT was able to drop 65% against Bitcoin? Well, I mean, if we had assumed that it was a red flag for Ethereum back in 2016, then you would have missed out on what followed after. So I really do like the Polkadot ecosystem, and I think they have a lot more utility on the way. But right now, again, the market, it remains very speculative, and we also have to remember that it's very contingent. Short-term price action is going to be very contingent on what Bitcoin does. No matter what the potential upside looks like for any coin. If Bitcoin goes back to the 20-week, right? If it goes back to the 20-week, which is always a possibility, then the entire market is very likely going to pull back, okay? So if Bitcoin comes back to the 20-week at some point, the market will pull back as a whole, and therefore all the potential short-term predictions to the upside are completely null, right? All these predictions assume in the short term that Bitcoin can kind of stay at these levels, where it's above the 20-week, but also not putting in new all-time highs. This is sort of like the Goldilocks zone for altcoins. So if you want to see projects like Polkadot do well and rally against Bitcoin, rally against Ethereum, rally against the US dollar, you would ideally like to see you would like to see Bitcoin just hang out. Bitcoin can drop as well. It doesn't have to hang out at, say, 51 or 52K. even if it dropped back down, a few percentage points, it can still allow altcoins to rally. But if Bitcoin were to drop, say, 20%, then it would really hit altcoins hard. And then we would have to see if Bitcoin can actually hold the line. And if it can hold the line, then Bitcoin likely will resume control for a while, as it would potentially go back into price discovery mode itself. So hopefully this is somewhat informative. Polkadot, it took a hit harder than most projects did. This is one we followed back last year between $3 to $6. I even told you guys on the public channel, hey, this is the accumulation phase. Go look at the playlist on the channel if you don't believe me. I said, what did I say back then? I said, I think we're going to look back in the future. When we are in the future, we're going to look back and recognize that was a great accumulation time for Polkadot. So those are some of the first videos on Polkadot. Now at the time, not everyone believed it because we came down, we came back up, and we came down to lower prices than we had been when I first made some of those videos. And when we came back up, everyone was excited, and then we still got rejected back down, back to about $4.50. But it doesn't change the fact that I just said anything between $3 to $6 on Polkadot is more or less fair game, and that you're essentially just accumulating a position to ride out the market cycle. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Remember to check out the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com if you want access to weekly reports and videos, the Telegram alerts channel, the Telegram chat room, the risk dashboard, the trading view indicators, and more. We have more stuff coming. Check it out. Definitely subscribe. Click the bell icon to turn on your notifications, and I will see you next time. Bye.